Good morning to you. It is the Nikki Medoro show on this Tuesday. Kind of a little rainy out there. A lot of you guys are talking about being out in the rain this morning from Vacaville and other parts of the North Bay. So it's one of those bundle up kind of days. How is everybody? Thank you for being here. Nikki Medoro is off today and tomorrow. She will be back on the show Thursday and Friday. I have a guest on the show today that I'm really excited about. It's kind of a last minute thing. I was reading this article about how Trump, I don't know if you saw this, it's kind of disturbing. Reminds me of when Trump made fun of a disabled person. Yeah. Except for this isn't a real disability. This is a speech impediment, right? One which President Biden has pretty much overcome, being a successful politician. So Trump makes fun of Biden for stuttering. And this group across the country of people who stutter, were bullied in school because of it, have risen up and are all over social media talking about stuttering and their experiences with stuttering in their life. One of them is a very successful podcaster, and her name is Maya, and she will be on the show at about 10 o'clock today to talk to us about how what Trump said made her feel, the memories that it brought up for her. So we'll talk about that. Um, are you tired yet? I know it's only Tuesday, right? We should be rolling along, everything should be fine. But this whole spring forward, fall back, time change thing really is kind of a butt kicker for a lot of people. And you wouldn't think that an hour would make so much difference, but I think for kids and for a lot of people who get on this, very rigid clock, it can be. I tend to be a little more fluid, but I feel affected by this. I don't know if you guys are as well, but um, what I understand is that California is once again considering legislation to do away with daylight saving time. But it has to be a decision made at a federal level. Um, it's called the Sunshine Protection Act, and it would allow all the states that would currently observe permanent standard time, Hawaii, most of Arizona, the U.S. territories, to remain on year round standard time. And people are in favor of this mostly. According to an Economist YouGov poll, they asked 1,000 adults, and nearly two-thirds of Americans said they were in favor of ending changing our clocks forward and back. They did favor year-round daylight saving time, as opposed to 31% who prefers standard time. So federal law apparently prevents states from making daylight saving time permanent, but 19 states have enacted legislation or passed resolutions greenlighting permanent daylight saving time if Congress approves the change. So, I guess, will they approve the change? There's a Sunshine Protection Act, and Congress is talking about it, so we'll see. Maybe we can get some relief. People can finally get some relief. I'll tell you. So, a lot of Trump news popped up for me. It's kind of like a giant Trump fest that I have for you, and I don't want to overdo it, but there's a lot of stories that I think are pretty important that we need to be aware of. So before I do it, I'm going to look in the chat and see if anybody is having. Oh, yeah, Finney says I don't have a schedule and it still screws with my health. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Lori wants to keep standard time. Yeah. I'm telling you. Donald the Maine Coon says, I get up early, definitely feel the loss of the hour. Yeah. Yes, we have, and I guess we're going to pass another one. There's more legislation, so I don't know. I don't know why we need it. Coffee, coffee, coffee. Exactly. Coachella Valley coffee is how that works out. All right. I don't see any birthdays or anything else to note, so let's move on to, sadly, Trump. I don't know if you saw this, but CNN had this exclusive interview with Mar-a-Lago employee number 5. And he's one of those charged in the whole obstruction of justice, moving evidence type of thing for moving the boxes of classified documents around Mar-a-Lago. And he talked to CNN yesterday, and it was pretty interesting what he said. The federal investigators are at the door as he's moving boxes around Mar-a-Lago. Pretty crazy stuff. So I thought maybe we could take a little listen and and get at least some snippets of this from CNN.
And then what happened is Walt left before me, and he never goes directly to the plane. He's either in the motorcade or when he goes there with the boss, which the former president. And I remember telling him he left the club with, I didn't know what he had in his vehicle, but he waited for me at a nearby business, and I told him I would tell him when I was leaving Mar-a-Lago. So I left Mar-a-Lago, I texted him, hey, I'm on my way. He followed me, he pulled out and got behind me, we got to the airport. I ended up loading all the luggage I had, and he had a bunch of boxes.
You noticed that he had boxes?
Oh yeah, they were the boxes that were in the indictment, the white banker's boxes. That's what I remember loading.
And did you have any idea at the time that there was potentially U.S. national security secrets in those boxes?
No clue. No, I had no clue. I mean, we were just taking them out of the Escalade, piling them up. I remember they were all stacked on top of each other, and then we're lifting them up to the pilots.
How many boxes was it?
You know, they asked me in the interview, and I believe it was 10 to 15 is what I remember. I know
They
it was
being the investigators.
correct.
And when you look back on that now, what do you?
Well, I had no clue until probably the end of June. There was a few different things that happened that kind of opened my eyes to, something's going on here.
So you get that unusual request. Did you ever think to yourself, why were there so many boxes at Mar-a-Lago?
For me, I'm just thinking, the former president, he has a lot of stuff he likes to lug around with him. I never would have thought it was anything like what we see now.
Classified documents.
Yeah. And so he details being pressured to use a Trump lawyer. The lawyer even says, I am an attorney for the president. And he fights against it, gets his own attorney. But he talks about being pressured. He talks about being called to ask if he's loyal to the president. I mean, it's some pretty sketchy stuff going on in the situation. What he has to say is pretty damaging as far as turning evidence against the president, so former president. So it'll be interesting to see if his testimony is the thing that makes the difference in this documents case. Meanwhile, and this makes a lot of sense, I don't know if you saw the story about Adam Schiff, who is a congressman, of course, from California, running to be our senator. He is, when someone's running for president, when they finally receive the GOP nomination, they are given the daily briefing so that if they assume office, they can hit the ball running, right? Hit the ground running. Schiff is saying, wait a minute, maybe we shouldn't really be giving documents to former President Trump. Can he be trusted with America's secrets? So he wants any documents given to Trump dumbed down, is the words. Dumbed down intelligence briefings for Trump. This is a former president facing 91 criminal charges, as we just discussed, for mishandling documents among them. And so Adam Schiff, and I think rightly so, let me know what you think in the chat, talks about dumbing down any intelligence briefings provided to Trump as part of this long-standing tradition extended to presidential nominees, where they're allowed to see the briefings and know what's going on in the United States. And Trump is expected to receive these intelligence briefings. In spite of the criminal charges he faces, in spite of the fact that he can't be trusted with America's secrets, that he mishandles America's secrets, that he's over there waving them around at Mar-a-Lago, Not supposed to have these. We're going to trust him with our secrets again? That doesn't seem smart to me. Schiff was on NBC's Meet the Press, and he said, while it is standard practice to give the nominee, the presumptive nominee, or once they clinch the nomination, actually, is when they start giving them the briefings, he said this track record of Trump really does concern him. He said the United States there's never been anything like this, right? The United States has never had a presidential candidate who, according to Schiff, has been as criminally negligent in handling classified information as Trump. And if you listen to the whole interview with that Mar-a-Lago employee number 5 and the lengths they went to conceal the boxes, the classified documents, it was a completely different situation than, oh my gosh, I have these, let me give them all back. It was let's play, hide and seek with the documents. We're moving them here, we're moving them there. We're deleting camera evidence that we ever were here in the hall. Come on. Schiff says, I have to hope, and knowing the intelligence community as I do, that they will dumb down the briefing for Donald Trump. That is, they will give him no more information than absolutely necessary, nothing that would reveal sources or methods, because we can't trust that he will do the right thing with that information. He has been so reckless. Those are the words of Adam Schiff. He said they will be very wary of what they share with him. I ask you, if we have to be wary of what we share with someone, the secrets of our country, if we don't trust someone to have any more information than is absolutely necessary, if we don't trust someone to know our sources or methods, can we trust them to be the leader of this country? I think the answer is glaringly obvious, and how anybody could fail to see it is a big old shocker to me, but it has been for a long time. I do feel like Trump should get some information because he could be the president, but I do think they have to be very careful about exactly what it is that they are sharing with him and whether it puts anyone at risk. I hate to say that he deserves any information at all, but yeah. Here's Adam Schiff on NBC's Meet the Press. Let's hear what he has to say.
This weekend, U.S. intelligence officials are planning to provide briefings for Donald Trump if he officially secures the nomination, despite the fact that he's facing 40 felony charges for his handling of classified documents. As the former chair of the House Intelligence Committee, do you think it's appropriate for him to receive intelligence briefings?
Well, that is the practice, but we've never had a situation where one of the candidates for president has been so criminally negligent when it comes to handling, if not worse, when it comes to handling classified information. So I have to hope, and knowing the intelligence community as I do, that they will dumb down the briefing for Donald Trump. That is, they will give him no more information than absolutely necessary, nothing that would reveal sources or methods, because we can't trust that he will do the right thing with that information. He's been so reckless. So yes, it does concern me. It is part of a long tradition. They will be wary of what they share with him, and they should.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about...
Again, Adam Schiff on NBC's Meet the Press. And Linda says, yeah, it's obvious we can't trust Trump with any intelligence, right? Carrie writing, Trump proves one thing, the U.S. needs a deeper level of security. Completely. And Lori with a good point this morning, giving the documents is a courtesy. Only President Biden doesn't have to give anything. Give him nothing unless he gets in office. God forbid. Right. And so, I'm obviously amongst friends here, amongst like-minded thinkers, right? Yeah, don't give that fool anything. Right. Redact. Liz, why give him any briefings? He doesn't read. Give him doodles. Right? He doesn't read them anyway. Yeah. Linda says we can't trust Trump with any intelligence information. I totally agree with Adam Schiff. Yeah. And Vilma with an excellent point this morning. With Donald Trump, our intelligence is for sale. He owes a lot of money. Anybody watch Rachel Maddow last night? I did not. Mindy The Supreme Court caused a supreme disservice to us by allowing Trump to be on the ballot. He is a criminal. He will sell America to the highest bidder. And so, if this is the feeling, it doesn't inspire a lot of confidence that Trump would get a daily briefing, right? He hasn't locked officially the nomination yet. There's a bunch of nominating contests going on today. I think Hawaii is one of the states that is voting today. So it's not far off in the future that Trump will be, sadly, the nominee, the Republican nominee for president. Sandy, agree completely. She writes, "It's so depressing the GOP continues to support Trump. She says, I worry that he could be reelected, and what a disaster it would be." Even if he gets into office and does nothing, the fact that we don't trust that much of the American electorate, many of the citizens of this country have such a distrust of him doesn't bode well, right? For how we see America, the process of moving forward, all the things that are important to us. The fear that I'm seeing in the chat, if he should be reelected. Yeah. Heather says, yeah, it's scary. How did we get here twice? That's a shocker. Mike says, when Trump was president, he barely showed up for the briefings anyway. He will demand, right? He will demand it. And then if it's not given, it'll be used as a talking point, right? About how one thing is acceptable for one president and one thing is acceptable for another. It'll become a thing. And do we want it to become a thing? I don't know. I almost feel like there should be some type of legal restriction on him so that President Biden, his hands are tied as to what he can share with Trump and what he can't share with Trump as long as this documents case is pending. A case, by the way, in which Trump seeks delay after delay after delay. So if, pending the outcome of this documents case, there were some type of restriction on the information that could be shared with him, well, that could take the pressure off everyone else. Yeah. Meanwhile, Trump also wants a delay in the hush money case for Stormy Daniels, right? He's asking the Supreme Court, of course, to rule on presidential immunity, even though this particular case happened while he was running in 2016 with the hush money payments to Stormy Daniels, allegedly. He feels that presidential immunity somehow is applicable. I don't think, even if the Supreme Court said, gee, everything that happened while you were president is off limits. No, not this. This is the case that just won't go away for Trump. There's this criminal trial. The jury selection is expected to get underway on March 25th. But Trump is trying to get it pushed back until after the Supreme Court rules on immunity. And that is not scheduled to be heard until April 25th. So the jury selection for the Stormy Daniels case is March 25th, presidential immunity April 25th. So the decision on the immunity might not come until late June or early July, which, what we know, get my blanket up here, means delay, 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 delay. President Trump, according to the motion, respectfully submits that an adjournment of the trial is appropriate to await further guidance from the Supreme Court, which should facilitate the appropriate application of the presidential immunity doctrine in this case to evidence the people intend to offer at trial. It might be the one decision the Supreme Court goes against Trump on because it's so outrageous. But again, even if they rule in Trump's favor on this, the hush money payments were made during the 2016 presidential campaign, not after the campaign, not after the election, before it. So it would seem to me that immunity wouldn't apply here. I don't know. It seems like common sense, but whatever. We'll see if they delay the case for the immunity ruling. Meanwhile, Trump is going to get himself in the hot seat again with E. Jean Carroll. All of these cases keep rotating around. You would think that he would be done with it, right? Number one, he loses to E. Jean Carroll. Opens his big mouth. She sees him again. Number two, he has to pay up to E. Jean Carroll. And not a little, a lot. Well, now he's opening his mouth again about E. Jean Carroll. You would think this is a person who would have learned his lesson. But no, he has not. He said, I'm going to end up winning on appeal. And if I didn't win on appeal on these ridiculous decisions, if I didn't win on appeal, it's the most ridiculous decision putting the Miss Bergdorf Goodman person I never met. I have no idea who she is, except one thing, I got sued. From that point on, I said, wow, this is crazy. What is this? I got charged. I was given a false accusation, and I had to post $91 million bond for a false accusation. Carroll's attorneys in response say, we are listening, and we are watching his every move, and we will sue him again if he slanders her again. Right? They said the statute of limitations for defamation is in most jurisdictions is between 1 and 3 years. And this is according to E. Jean Carroll's attorneys. As we said, after the last jury verdict, we continue to monitor every statement that Donald Trump makes about our client, E. Jean Carroll. That, according to her attorney, Robbie Kaplan. So, he doesn't get it. I mean, if you or I twice had been found that we defamed someone, wouldn't we just as Will Smith said, get your name out of the mouth? Not to quote exactly, but her name wouldn't be in my mouth ever again. Right? I guess the rules don't apply. He doesn't get it. Or maybe because it seems like the RNC is ready to pay all of his legal bills and donors are coming forward with cash. He doesn't even have to put up the money himself, perhaps? I don't know. It seemed like the whole point of hitting him in the pocketbook was where it was really going to hurt him the most. But if people come up with the money that so he doesn't have to fork it over, that's not doing very much, is it? No, Kim. No, it's not. All right, let's do a little bit of news before we move on because, there's more Trump. Trust me, there's more Trump. But right now, let's go to the news here on the Nikki Medoro
Now,
Show.
from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Medoro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
Well, the special counsel tasked with investigating President Biden's handling of classified material is defending his report and his decision to comment on President Biden's memory. During testimony on Capitol Hill, special counsel Robert Hur said his assessment of the president's memory was what he said necessary and fair. He said both the evidence and the president himself put his memory squarely at issue by relaying he had no recollection of how documents ended up in his home or in his garage. A former Boeing employee who raised concerns about production standards at the company has been found dead. John Barnett worked for Boeing for 32 years. He was giving evidence recently as part of a whistleblower lawsuit against Boeing. The coroner in Charleston County, South Carolina, said he died Saturday from a self-inflicted wound in his truck. Barnett had alleged in the lawsuit some workers were fitting substandard parts to aircrafts on the assembly line, with some removed from scrap bins to avoid delays. Intelligence officials will brief House lawmakers on TikTok today. The briefing comes ahead of a highly anticipated floor vote on Wednesday that could ultimately ban the popular social media app in the United States. The legislation would force Chinese company ByteDance to divest from TikTok or face a ban in U.S. app stores. Former President Trump promising to free those who stormed the U.S. Capitol if he is elected for a second term come November. I can't. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said one of his first acts as president would be to free who he called the January 6th hostages being wrongfully imprisoned. Since the 2021 riot, More than 1,300 people have been charged for crimes related to the breach of the Capitol, with more than 950 convictions. And he wants to free them. Inflation was up again in February, with slightly higher than analysts were predicting. The Consumer Price Index, a measure of the cost of goods and services, was up 0.4% in the month and 3.2% from the same time last year. The numbers, though, are down from the recent peak of inflation in 2022, still off the Federal Reserve's goal of a 2% rate, but perhaps headed in the right direction. There's a new Kobe Bryant statue, which is outside of Los Angeles' Crypto.com arena, and apparently it already needs some adjusting here and there because of typos, like mine today. Lakers officials say they've been made aware of several errors in the marble base of the statue, including the misspellings of the names of at least 2 players listed there. The 19-foot statue has become a popular gathering spot for Lakers fans before games. Team officials say they do plan to correct those errors soon. How embarrassing. I mean, we're not talking just, a typo on a title, something easily to be fixed. We're talking something carved in marble. You would have thought that maybe they would have double-checked that before it went up. But okay. I mean, yeah. That's not so good. How embarrassing is that to be called out for that? I don't know. I don't like it. A little business news for you now. We mentioned this yesterday, but Airbnb is banning indoor security cameras from all listings now. The short-term rental platform previously allowed them in common spaces and visible areas, but only if they were disclosed on the Airbnb listing page. The move comes after customer complaints about privacy. Completely understandable, I think. Bear Robotics has just raised $60 million in funding, this company out of Redwood City. The AI waiter startup is receiving a cash infusion from LG Electronics. It's unclear how the new investment will impact the company's valuation, but as of 2022, it was pegged at $490 million, so they're doing pretty well. Applied Intuition is a company in the Bay Area, Mountain View. They're now valued at $6 billion. It's an autonomous vehicle software company. They just closed on a $250 million round of investment. Company leaders say they'll be using the money to bring more artificial intelligence to consumer, agriculture, construction, and military vehicles. A lot of people a little nervous about driverless vehicles already. So, no. In Los Angeles, there's a hotel, pretty famous, called the Cecil Hotel. It's in downtown Los Angeles, and it is now up for sale. It's a 100-year-old building currently being used as an affordable housing complex for homeless people. It's been connected with as many as 16 deaths since it opened, and it was the subject of a Netflix documentary series released in 2021. At least 2 serial killers also lived at the Cecil Hotel at one point, including the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez. The property is now called Stay on Main after a name change in 2011. And it is for sale. Who wants to buy that? There's a man accused, sadly, of using a mailing facility in Torrance, California, to illegally send turtles back to his home in Hong Kong. The 53-year-old man, arrested at New York's JFK International Airport late last month, has been charged with exporting merchandise contrary to law. Authorities say he smuggled 40 eastern box turtles to his house. They found the turtles stuffed into 4 packages at an international mailing facility in Torrance. Inside each box, 8 to 12 turtles, all crammed into socks. The man is facing up to 40 years in federal prison if he is convicted. A peculiar thing washed up on the shores of Long Beach. A huge slab of concrete, 30 feet long, more than 6 feet high. The concrete washing ashore on Junipero Beach last week. It's been moved next to the Long Beach Marine Department maintenance yard. City officials think this concrete slab came from the Hotel Maya, likely part of a dry dock that broke off during a storm last month. It'll be broken down and hauled to a dump. That might take a couple of weeks, though, but I'm sure that was quite a surprise to see that thing flying up. The authorities in the North Bay here releasing some new information about a really sad case. A mother and her young son found dead in their apartment. This happened in Santa Rosa last Wednesday. On Monday, police identified the pair as 54-year-old Cynthia Salcido Fimbres and her 10-year-old son Maximus. Autopsy results haven't been released yet, but detectives there say the mother appears to have died from self-inflicted wounds. It's just a sad situation. The son didn't have visible injuries. They were both found dead in that house, and police are still investigating there. A former senior executive is suing the Redwood Empire Food Bank. This is an organization that really can't afford to lose any money. The woman claims David Goodman, the former CEO of the Santa Rosa-based nonprofit, sexually harassed her during the 5 years that she worked for him. The lawsuit, filed last month in Sonoma County Superior Court, claims sexual harassment, sexual discrimination, failure to act, retaliation, and wrongful termination. The lawsuit also accuses other people within the Redwood Empire Food Bank organization of failing to prevent the misconduct from happening. This woman making the claims was hired as the organization's director of development in 2018. So that is a big lawsuit, and if she's successful, you could hurt an agency that's trying to feed people. I'm not trying to excuse whatever may or may not have happened there, but I don't know if I could sue an agency that's trying to feed people that are in dire straits. Kaiser Permanente is planning to build an 8-story hospital in the rail yards area in Sacramento. Kaiser recently filed plans with the city of Sacramento saying it wants to build a state-of-the-art medical center there. The acute hospital would be 657,000 square feet with 310 beds. It would include emergency and surgical departments. There'd be a large medical office, a central utility plant, 7-level parking garage. These plans are now being reviewed for approval, so we'll see if they get this new Kaiser Medical Center in the Sacramento area. Newly picked head of the New Orleans police is painting a bleak picture of the police department headquarters. Chief Ann Kirkpatrick says rats have invaded the evidence room and have eaten all the marijuana. She told the city council that on a visit she noticed the rodents all seemed to be pretty high. Police leadership is pleading for the funding to move the department to a new location. One idea being discussed, a few floors of a high-rise across from the Caesars Superdome. It's a problem when rats are eating the pot in the evidence room. Just saying. There is and who knew this was still even a law in New York? A Long Island lawmaker wants to decriminalize adultery in New York. According to the state penal code, adultery is still a Class B misdemeanor, although since 1972, only 13 people have been charged and 5 convicted. A New York assemblyman is introducing a bill to repeal and decriminalize the act of adultery in New York, calling it an archaic piece of law. A handful of states have a similar law. I don't know. I don't think, would you want to be the person to stand up and say, yay for adultery, make it okay? But then again, can you believe that's still a law? Yeah. We talked about this yesterday on the Mark Thompson Show, but just in case you happen to have this in your fridge, Johnsonville Meat is recalling more than 35,000 pounds of turkey sausage. Why? Chunks of black rubber found inside the sausage. It's ready-to-eat Polish kielbasa turkey sausage. At least 2 consumers reported black rubber in the sausage. This according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Food Safety and Inspection Service. The product was from October 30th and 31st. So if there's something in your freezer, it was shipped to several states, make sure you get rid of it, because ew, that's gross, right? Michelle Yeoh is explaining why she passed the Best Actress Oscar award to Jennifer Lawrence to give to Emma Stone, she wrote on Instagram in a caption underneath a photo of Yo hugging Stone, "I wanted to share that glorious moment of handing over the Oscar to you together with your best friend Jennifer." The Everything Everywhere All at Once actress, who won the same award last year, said Stone and Lawrence's friendship reminds her of her own friendship with co-star Jamie Lee Curtis. So it was a sweet moment. It looked like maybe she didn't know which actress to give it to, but apparently she did it on purpose, so there you go. This report is sponsored by you. Of course, we do rely on you to help us with funding of The Nikki Medoro Show. Find us at thenikkimedoroshow.com. Again, it is thenikkimedoroshow.com, and that is where the Patreon and the PayPal links can be found as well. Also in the show description, all of that information plus more, including the recipes links that Nikki has and the sleep log links that she has. So again, that's all at the bottom of the show description. And if you could, please click the thumbs up button today to show your support of the show. That's a free way to help us out, so we appreciate it. And share the show if you can as well. That is also very appreciated. All right, let's get right back into it. There was a headline, bloodbath at the RNC. Yeah. The new leadership at the Republican National Committee, all people loyal to Donald Trump. I don't know if this is normal, and I'll have to ask John Rothman when he comes in to Mark Thompson's show tomorrow. But I've never heard before of a current or former president really calling the shots at the party level, right? But apparently, Trump gets to do this. And because he did, they've laid off at least 60 people. They're telling people you can reapply for your job, but we need to make sure that everybody who works in this building is doing things the Trump way, is doing things the way that he feels will lead to a success come November. And so the people let go were cut from the political, the data, the communications departments, the senior staff even as well. Some third-party contracts also to be canceled. And people are describing it there as a total bloodbath. I mean, it's just interesting how much control he has over things like this. The RNC, according to The Guardian, is being brought under the Trump campaign to such an extent that the firings are mainly to ensure there's no overlap in roles between the RNC and the Trump campaign. They apparently already have a big communications team, so they don't necessarily need one. Pardon me. And so all these people are being let go. Now, is it hard for me to feel sorry for people that lost their job at the RNC? Maybe a little bit. It's interesting. The chairman now, Whatley, and Laura Trump unanimously elected on Friday as the new RNC leaders, and they didn't waste any time in doing this big layoff. So, big shakeup there. People are being urged to resign, to quit, or be fired kind of situation at the Republican National Committee. So in just 10 minutes, we're going to have a guest, and I'll kind of put a pin in the story until then. About Trump making fun of President Biden's stutter, something he has worked to overcome through his whole life. And again, we will have a guest this morning. Her name is Maya Chupkov. Hopefully I'm saying that right. And she is the founder of a group called, she's the founder of a group and a podcast called Proud Stutter. She was a stutterer. She's worked for most of her life to overcome it. And now she's lifting up voices for people with what she calls speech diversities. And so she's going to come on and talk a little bit about what that meant to her. And again, that'll happen in just a few minutes here. But right now, let's move on to the immigration laws in Arizona, because I saw this story yesterday and was really honestly surprised about it. I don't know why it hit me this way, but it really did. So In Arizona, Democratic Governor Katie Hobbs, thank God, is expected to veto a trespassing bill. And another one that cleared the both houses this last week as well, that would make it a state crime to enter Arizona illegally between ports of entry. The illegal crossings topped 2 million people for the first time in the last 2 budget years. And Arizona in recent months apparently is the most popular place for people to cross over, right? But this trespassing law, apparently, according to one proponent of the bill, says it would lawfully allow property owners to shoot and kill migrants criminally trespassing on their property. So it could be, maybe you live on the border and someone walks through your front yard to get to safety. I don't know. It doesn't necessarily mean someone is intruding in your house to hurt you. But if they're anywhere on your property, I guess you can open fire and shoot and kill people. Especially if they're a migrant. They call it a tough border stance. I call it a little bit of overkill there. So it looks like Governor Hobbs is going to veto that. That it would even be passed is pretty... I don't know why I think it's so surprising that people could be so ugly to other human beings. The GOP state senate in Arizona says the Arizona Border Invasion Act would protect Arizona citizens and communities from the crime and security threats associated with the current border invasion caused by the Biden administration's refusal to enforce immigration laws. Now, I would argue caused actually by Republicans who refused to pass a bipartisan border bill. But okay, I digress. That you could open fire on someone just walking through your front yard is pretty outrageous to me. And I don't know, maybe I'm getting this wrong, but that seems to be the case. You know? I'm just glad that there's someone in power there that has some good sense, right? Is that who we want to be as a country? You know, come in here, we're going to kill you. Is that what we want? That's not who I want to be. I don't know. I understand it's a problem in Arizona. I understand that people are here and breaking laws to be here. I get that. But I just feel like we need to do things in a way that respects humanity, right? We can do things with kindness. Yeah, that's right. Shoot someone for trespassing. Not even, I mean, if your family's in danger, right? If there are people coming at you, trying to break into your house, that's one thing. You need to defend yourself and your family. But just trespassing? What if somebody's just trying to, hops a fence and hops another fence? In the time where their feet are on the ground on property you own, you can just open fire because they're a migrant trespassing? Mindy says, I blame the people that vote for Trump. I'm disgusted that there are so many unfortunate voters that do. Yeah. Vilma with a very good point. How do you tell if people are migrants? Is it the color of their skin? Is it because they don't speak English? I mean, maybe it's how they're dressed. Maybe it's what they're carrying all their worldly belongings. Yeah. Vilma, how do you tell? And why would you want to hurt someone just because they're trying to make a better life for themselves? Maybe they're doing it in a way that isn't on the up and up, and that doesn't follow our laws. They just came a really long way and likely suffered to do it. And I'm not saying it's right, but I'm saying maybe we could be a little more kind. Yeah. Yeah, sounds like more like Texas. Well, again, Arizona proving to be the most popular border crossing spot, right? So I guess I can understand why people there are frustrated, but to say you could just open fire on someone, yeah, no, thank you, don't like it. The mayor in Tucson gave an interview, and said their city has been on the front line of welcoming immigrants and asylum seekers, but in the last year, they've seen numbers go up to levels they've never seen before, and it's something that they're partnering with other government agencies on, trying to get federal funds to process people in a timely fashion. She said, processed asylum seekers usually spend about 24 to 72 hours in Tucson or have family or friends that they connect throughout the rest of the country. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's disappointing that they would do that, I think. And then, and I know that we've talked about this as well, I think Mark mentioned it yesterday, but here we go again with the measles. Now a possible measles exposure reported in the Sacramento area. This is something we thought we got rid of. We had such success with vaccines that we had stamped out measles in the United States. It wasn't really a big concern because people were vaccinated for it. Now we've got measles outbreaks in multiple states and a new report where now people are being contacted by the UC Davis Medical Center because of an outbreak. Here's what happened. Apparently, there was someone, possibly a child, looking right now, at least 300 people might have been exposed to the measles virus because a child with a confirmed case of measles visited the UC Davis Medical Center Emergency Department, I used to work there, by the way, in Sacramento on Tuesday. In doing so, right, everyone in the vicinity, we're talking staff members, people sitting in the waiting room, people in the emergency room suffering from other ailments, all of those people exposed. So UC Davis is now having to contact everyone that might have been exposed to the measles virus. And hopefully most are vaccinated. Anyone who suspects that they were exposed should go right to the emergency room, as they could be putting other people out in the community at risk as well. What a mess. UC Davis put out a statement. They say they're working with the county health officers. They're contacting about 300 people who were in the ER when a child who returned from travel out of country was being evaluated for suspected measles. UC Davis, they said, has a record of each patient and employee who was in the emergency department that day, and notifications about potential exposure taking place through the electronic medical records, online messaging portal, letters, in person, over the phone. Only people deemed at risk of exposure that afternoon and evening are being contacted. People with measles are infectious 4 days from 4 days before to 4 days after the onset of the rash. But infected people who are not showing any symptoms of the illness can still transmit the virus. So now that we have more kids that aren't vaccinated, here comes measles marching back in. And because people are not getting vaccinated, that can get vaccinated. I'm not talking about people that have cancer or have some type of immune illness or syndrome or something that can't get vaccinated. There are people that shouldn't get vaccinated, right? They're few and far between, but they're there. And that means everybody else, we got to pick up the mantle. We got to get vaccinated and keep measles stamped out. No, apparently we can't do that. Now, Mark was saying yesterday, well, people feel very scared about the vaccines and they're trying to put their kids on different vaccine schedules. It's because they're not educated. I truly believe this. There was a moment when I had to get my babies vaccinated. I have 2. And it was right around the time that Jenny McCarthy was spouting her nonsense. And she said something like, oh, I looked into my child's eyes and as he was getting the vaccine and I could see the change. I'm telling you, when she said that, it scared the bejesus out of me. right? But you look at science and you look at other things. Are vaccines 100% safe? Does it mean your child might not have a reaction? No. But if you look at the consequence of not getting vaccinated, it seems to me your chances are worse if you don't get vaccinated. And I don't think this is something that we can negotiate. We've seen diseases stamped out and now come back. And if that isn't evidence enough, I don't know what is. All right. Let's backtrack to Trump a little bit, because I'm very, very excited today to welcome our guest, Maya Chupkov, who is with Proud Stutter. It is a podcast and I think maybe a group as well. And she heard former President Trump ridicule President Biden over his speech impediment. It really does, as I mentioned earlier, harken back to that. There's a little gnat flying around. Harken back to that moment. And I don't equate a speech impediment with a disability. I understand they're two completely different things. But what is similar is the ugliness about it, is the bullying and the ugliness. Remember when Trump made fun of someone that was a disabled reporter? You would think that maybe after hearing what people had to say about that, he would think, oh, gosh, maybe I went over the line with that one. He's right back at it, talking about what is wrong with people, right? Pointing out our differences. And there's nothing wrong with having a stutter. Nothing at all. And trying to overcome it, as President Biden has done, is nothing short of amazing. Look at him, President of the United States, right? We should be proud of him, not ridiculing. Anyway, let me welcome to the show Maya Chupkov with Proud Stutter. Maya, thank you for being here today.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And I know this was last minute, so I appreciate you jumping on. Can you tell me a little bit about Proud Stutter and what it is that you do?
Yeah, so Proud Stutter it was a podcast first, and now it is a nonprofit advocacy organization. And so we do media advocacy. We help others do media advocacy. We do events. We do advocacy locally, statewide. And also, the podcast, that's kind of was the first birth of Proud Stutter. And so I still do the podcast. New episodes come out every other Friday.
Okay. And so why do you feel like people that stutter need an advocate?
Yeah. So Proud Stutter, stuttering is so misrepresented in media. It's represented on TV, in film, in pop culture. And I never really thought society really understood stuttering. And when I started the podcast, I realized I was not alone in that. There are a lot of people who stutter who feel very misunderstood. And stuttering is such a unique, identify stuttering as a disability. So my disability, I feel like it can be a very isolating experience. And so that's why I started Proud to Stutter and built beyond the podcast, because I felt like there needed to be a voice to kind of share out that, this is who we are. And, we're just like everyone else. It's just we speak a little differently.
Let's, I know it's painful, but let's take a look at what Trump said regarding President Biden's stutter. Here is a look at what he had to say.
I'm going to bring the country together. I'm going to bring it together.
Yeah. How did you feel when you heard that, and what did it inspire you to do?
Yeah. So what happened? So I actually, I got a text from my husband. I was in LA traveling for family stuff, and I saw that, oh, Trump, like I saw the headline on C-SPAN, the clip, and before I played it because I was in the car. I was like, okay, let me just wait until I get home. I open my email and there's like so many emails. And so I was like, oh no. So then I went home, I watched it. I'm like, okay, here we go again.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I've dealt so much with the emotional trauma, and like that's not the first time I've seen it. And so it wasn't like, I didn't feel like, really emotional about it. I felt angry. I felt frustrated. Like, really, this is happening again. And so that led me, my husband actually recommended that I send out a press release. And I was like, okay, like it's a Sunday. Like I kind of want to be here with my family, but I'm just going to take, I'm just going to take this time to just write a press release, got some help from other people who stutter, and sent it to over 200 reporters. And out of that, Newsweek wrote a story, and Politico, and I'm sure there's been a ton of others as well.
And so when you sent out this press release, kind of an army of people came forward that are, I don't know if they're part of Proud Stutter or they're advocates as well. And all of these people are saying, hey, wait a minute, this isn't the way to treat someone.
Yes, there's definitely a Proud Stutter community, but there's also so many amazing organizations that also are activating their communities as well. And so, yeah, and what's so different about this moment, because, as you said, this is not the first time
No.
that this has happened. But what's different is people are speaking up. Like I've never heard such loudness from people who stutter in my life, and it gives me so much hope.
Can you set me straight as far as the difference between the two? Because I said before you came on that Trump's first ridicule of someone for having a disability, right, is different than his ridiculing of someone who has a stutter. Because in my mind, a stutter isn't a disability. It's just a speech impediment. It doesn't necessarily affect your ability to go out and be successful in life or restrict your movements or anything else. So to me, it's not a disability. Am I wrong in that?
I think every person has a different answer
Yeah.
for that. There are some people who stutter very consistently, and it really gets in the way of them doing what they want to do.
Sure.
And I have so many stories to back that up. But for me, my stutter, it comes and goes. So I'll have fluent days. I'll have a really fluent day one day. And then the next day, sometimes it's really hard for me to even get a word out. So, so for me, it took me a long time to identify as someone with a speech disability. But when I really look at like all the times in my life where I avoided and weren't given opportunities because of my stutter, I think in that sense, I own that disability identity.
When you heard what Trump said, did it make you think of ways in your life that you have been maybe made fun of? Or because I was reading a little bit about maybe being bullied in school. Is that kind of what it reminded you of, like a schoolyard bully?
Yes. I mean, whenever and like that video, like, especially hearing the audience laugh, it was
Right.
just like, it took me right back to even like high school when I would be at like a social event and, I would stutter on my name or like the, the, the name of a beverage that you can't really substitute a word for. like, the class clown would make fun of me, my stutter.
Mhm.
And I just remember like, oh, the gut feeling I would have when that happened. And my response would always be to like laugh it off, laugh back and be like, oh,
Mhm.
ha ha ha. But like deep down, there's just like that feeling that people are judging you, or like, yeah, it brings me back to that for sure.
When you found out that President Biden had overcome a stutter or still deals with his stutter, did it make you feel hopeful, or what are your feelings about, I mean, does that give you, I don't know, a sense of camaraderie with him, or uh I guess, what are your feelings about that?
Yeah, I think, President Biden comes from a different generation where acceptance around like, you know, these neurodiversities and, disabilities and, that wasn't really a thing when he was growing up.
Hmm.
And even when speech therapy started, it was all about fluency shaping and fixing the stutter, hiding the stutter. And so I definitely can see how that could impact like his view on his stutter and really wanting to like overcome it.
Hmm.
For me, I realized from a very young age that I would never overcome my stutter. Like I tried so hard, it just never happened because, there's no cure for stuttering. Like, yes, there are some people who become more fluent after speech therapy, but there's some people who can't hide their stutter. And so, really, the message for Proud Stutter is that it's okay if like whether or not you want to work on your stutter, or whether or not you want to openly stutter, like it's okay. Like everyone approaches their stutter differently, and I kind of entered a time in my life recently where I was just like sick and tired of like trying to mask my speech. And so I've like every day I'm becoming more and more open about
Hmm.
my stutter.
When you look at what happened with President Trump, or former President Trump, and his ridiculing, and again, as you mentioned, all the people laughing, do you feel like more people in this world are that way? Are it's easy for them to, if someone's different, or if they can point out something different about someone, that they will? Or in your experience going through life, have you found most people kind and accepting of your speech?
Yeah, I would say that growing up, especially in middle school, high school, and even like early 20s, I definitely would encounter people who would use it as a way to like get a laugh out of, whoever we were with. And honestly, I blame that on pop culture. Like there's a movie, Billy Madison, that was huge, right? That was like a huge pop cultural moment with Adam
Sure.
Sandler, and him making fun of that student about his stutter. That joke kind of stuck around afterwards, and people used it whether they knew it or not. And so I definitely think, there were a lot of encounters like that, um but now I'm way more picky about who I surround myself with, and I can confidently say like maybe minus like one or two times I've only been surrounded by people who accept my stutter
Hmm.
and who have, made me feel comfortable with it.
I have a question from William, and he writes, and I think it comes from a genuine place. I'm going to be honest. How should I respectfully interact with someone who has a stutter? I mean, my answer might be different than yours, but my answer would just be listen to them like you listen to any person. It might take a little bit longer to get there, but what they have to say is equally as valuable.
I love that question. That is such a great question. Thank you so much for asking
Hmm.
that. I wish more but people did. So thank you for that. So yeah, definitely listen. I know like another thing that you might feel that a lot of people feel like they are helping with is like interrupting and finishing our sentences. That's usually not something we, people who stutter like a lot of us just like to finish our own thoughts and stuff like that. But another thing related to this that I learned on the podcast is that when people interact with someone who stutters for the first time, there's this like surprise element that happens, and that's psychology. Like that's just our human behavior. Like if we are hearing something or like we look at something for the first time and it's a little like not the norm, like I get it that it's psychologically like ingrained in us to like maybe look a certain way or give, a lot of people who stutter, we have the idea of the look that we constantly get when we stutter in front of people.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just say, when you are interacting with someone who stutters, just pay attention to your face and like how you're reacting with your face, and just really, like just treat the person like it's just a regular conversation, and give them the space to say what that they want to say.
Yeah. It's interesting. Mars says he actually prefers a stutter because it gives him more time to process what's being said, which is interesting.
I love. Oh, he is not the first person that has said that. So people do like that, and they like how I talk slow sometimes too, because they're just like, oh, this is cool. This is relaxing.
It really is. Especially for me, I come from this radio background where speech has to be perfect, diction must be perfect, you have to have a certain cadence and tempo, and it's nice to have differences and have that, as you say, be a little bit more relaxing. So I like that as well. Wow, interesting. Ricky Aubert says today, I had a problem speaking after losing my parents at 13. I'm so sorry, Ricky. It was 2 years, but the stutter was only part of my speech difficulties. So I guess stutter comes for different reasons.
Yes, there is definitely research that ties trauma to stuttering. Like I've actually interviewed a few people who said that they experienced either a physically traumatic event or a emotionally traumatic event, and they started to stutter after that, or like maybe they had stuttered before, but it kind of became more of a consistency afterwards. So, so yeah, you're not alone.
Can you tell me about the podcast? Do you talk about only speech, or do you talk about everything, or what's the Proud Stutter like?
Yeah, so Proud Stutter, we have conversations with people who stutter from all walks of life, like worldwide. And we from bus drivers to like CEOs. So you don't have to be like this fancy leadership person who stutters. Like I've interviewed teenagers, college students. It's just the whole gamut. And really the goal is to just show the world that each stutter is unique, and each person who stutters, they really just need a chance to like tell their story, because as someone who stutters, it may be difficult to talk about it. And so that's what it's all about. Something new we're doing for season 2 is inviting people who don't stutter to participate, so we can kind of get an outside perspective and kind of learn about stuttering, from that person, and also for intersectionality and conversations around how stuttering can relate to even random things in life. And so that's a new thing. And then we're also doing a documentary, which we're starting to film next week. So
exciting.
Yeah.
This is really cool. Do you know what it's called? Is it called Proud Stutter, or?
The title is TBD, but
Okay.
it's going to be about the diverse experience of Californians who stutter. So we're hoping it'll be a documentary series. That kind of depends on how much we fundraise. But we are shooting our pilot next week. I can't say too much about it yet, but it's going to be amazing.
That's so exciting. I'm really excited for you.
Thank
So,
you.
how do people find you here on YouTube and in the universe?
Yes. So Maya Chupkov is my handle on Instagram, and Proud Stutter everywhere else. Our website is proudstutter.org. We just released a comic book, so you can get your copy on our website. There's only there's a limited supply that we're going to print, but yeah, there's a ton to check out on our website.
I remember, well, I've makes me think when you said comic book, it makes me think about children who stutter and how probably many of them thought they were alone, right? And that,
Yes.
they were the ones that stood out for this particular reason. And when you find out that there's a world of people that have similar issues to you, maybe not the same, but similar, that there's even a comic book about it, that really kind of opens things up for people that are struggling.
Yeah, and the whole point about the comic book is to give children, parents, speech therapists a tool to just show young kids that, you're not alone, and this.
Well, I think your video froze, unfortunately. Hopefully you unfreeze in just a moment. Maya Chupkov, I will take you off the screen while you see maybe if you can refresh there, because your video just froze like that. But Maya Chupkov with Proud Stutter calling out Trump for really cruel comments. And I hope that what she has done here she is, makes a big difference in that. I'm sorry, you froze in the middle of a sentence.
Sorry about that.
No, it's technology. Yeah. So I had you were in the middle of talking about the comic books and your hopes for the what that would accomplish.
Yeah, I just hope that the comic book will, and we're already getting parents, grandparents, speech therapists buying the comic book, because I really think it's going to be such a great thing to have for young kids. We shared it at an event at a high school recently, and the kids just went wild over it. So I really think it's going to be a great resource for everyone that has a loved one who stutters and stutters themselves.
As a matter of fact, Mimi in the chat just said she has a stutter. She said she grew up with a stutter and a lisp. Through many hours of speech therapy, my speech pattern is more fluid, but I still stutter, she said. So is that, and thank you for sharing it, Mimi, is that a big thing for someone to admit?
In my experience, yes. I've met people who are 50 that hearing my podcast was the first time they ever heard someone else who stuttered. So,
Wow.
And admitting that they stutter too.
Yeah.
One guy I met, he has a very consistent stutter, and he didn't even think he had a stutter until he heard me on the radio. So it's so deeply hidden sometimes in us because of the shame, that coming to terms with it really takes a lot of courage and just wanting to take that next step, which can be really hard.
So lastly, I'll ask you whether you feel that this kind of grassroots effort to call out Trump over his ridiculing of President Biden, do you think it will make an effect? I'm thinking it probably won't make an effect on him, but maybe create awareness to those who did laugh or those who don't understand. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, like I mentioned before, this seems like a different moment for the stuttering movement and the speech diversity movement, and that so many advocates are speaking up. And I really think that, I hope the president is listening and, maybe he'll read an article or hear about it from someone. But really my hope is that people who stutter will see that there's a community out there that are standing up, and maybe they'll feel like they can stand up too at some point.
Well, I'm really excited about what you're doing. And today is the first day I've heard of your Proud Stutter and of your podcast. And I'm going to go back and watch your podcast. And I noticed on your website, you have a lot of good information for other podcasters, people like me, who can go in and look at your thoughts about marketing podcasts and ways to be successful. So thank you for putting all of that out there.
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah,
for the
thanks for
shout
being
out.
here. Yeah,
Thank
Maya
you.
Chupkov, a Proud Stutter. Have a great rest of your day. And
You
good
too.
luck with the documentary, too. Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you. How very cool to meet her. And what she's doing is amazing for people who are stuttering, for kids who are coming up and figuring out that maybe they're not so different in the world, and for calling out bullying where we see it. I have to say, that's really lovely. Yeah, a lot of comments, positive comments for Maya Chupkov today. So if you, want to check out her Proud Stutter, it's still up on the screen here, you can find it on YouTube and take a look at that and what she's trying to do. So, all right, let's do a little bit of news, why don't we? And then we'll jump right back into the rest of it. But for right now, let's see if I can get to my little sounder. It is the news here on the Nikki Medoro Show.
Now, from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Medoro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
There is a new study that is finding migrant drownings increased as the border wall got higher. The UC San Diego study, published in the Journal of the American Medicine, says migrant drownings have gone up sharply since 2019, one of the study's co-authors hypothesizing the increased height of the border wall may have led to the spike in drownings. The authors of the study say they plan to continue their work. They plan to expand the study to examine migrants' choices for a route and the factors involved in making that decision. A former Boeing employee, as we mentioned earlier, who raised concerns about production standards at the company, has been found dead. John Barnett worked for Boeing for 32 years and recently, just a few days before he died, gave evidence as part of a whistleblower lawsuit against Boeing. The coroner in Charleston County, South Carolina, says that Barnett died Saturday from a self-inflicted wound was found in his truck. Barnett had alleged in the lawsuit some workers were fitting substandard parts to aircrafts on the assembly line, and he even said that some of those parts were removed from scrap bins in order to avoid delays. Presidential nominating contests will be held in several states today. Voters heading to the polls in Georgia, in Hawaii, Mississippi, and Washington. This as both President Biden and Donald Trump are assured to win their party's nominations, but to go through these days anyway, right? To get to the end of it. It is Equal Pay Day today. It is the date symbolizing how far into the year women have to work to earn what men earned in the previous year. Labor Department says women in the U.S. earned about 20% less than men on average last year. The special counsel who investigated President Biden's handling of the classified documents case testified before a Republican-led House panel today. Robert Hur ultimately declined to bring criminal charges against President Biden. He said he has stopped short of finding that he willfully retained classified material. That was not something that he did. His public testimony will be held before the House Judiciary Committee, which is led by Republican Jim Jordan of Ohio. And he says that even though he questioned the president's memory, he said it was something that he felt was relevant and was pertinent to that case. He got a lot of criticism for that, but that is what he says he felt he needed to do, and so did. In the Sacramento County area, it's been a week since the primary election. Their election results are still far from being finalized. They're not alone, but Sacramento County has the second most unprocessed primary election ballots of any county in California. As of Friday's count, the most recent count, almost 143,000 ballots still need to be tallied. A little more than 180,000 ballots have been processed already. Some arrived at the election office late from drop boxes and the mail, so they're still working on it there. The Sacramento County Planning Commission is improving a proposal to install stadium lights at Jesuit High School in Carmichael. It was a 3-hour-long debate. This was pretty contentious. The school wants the football team and other sports teams to be able to play night games at their stadium, but some neighbors say the 4-foot, 100-foot-tall LED light stands will create a neighborhood nuisance. Those against the decision are now considering filing an appeal with the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors. This big situation going on in the city of Carmichael. Changes are coming to a federal women's prison here in the Bay Area that has been really scandalized by allegations of sexual abuse. FBI agents yesterday raiding the Women's Federal Correctional Institute in Dublin, seizing hundreds of documents and computers. The prison has been in the middle of an ongoing investigation into the allegations of sexual abuse and misconduct from prison staff. The Federal Bureau of Prison officials say they have also installed a new warden now at that facility. A North Bay man pretty upset after the state canceled his electric vehicle rebate because he filed it one day early. This story is wild. Jonathan Semenoff of Petaluma says he was counting on a $7,500 rebate to help pay for his Tesla Model 3. He and his family sat down, they ran the numbers about what they could afford, and they really were counting on that $7,500 to offset the cost of this Tesla. He just found out the state canceled his rebate without contacting him because he applied for it one day early. The state-funded rebate program created to kickstart more purchases of electric vehicles ran out of money last fall while people were still applying. Semenoff says he's one of potentially thousands of people who had their rebate canceled after it was promised to them. The California Air Resources Board says the agency can't make exceptions even for a small mistake. So what happened there is he bought his car, the sale went through on one day, he put it through, but apparently Tesla didn't file the paperwork until the next day. So the dates are off by one day, and that's why he lost out on the $7,500, which makes you think really that they'll use anything, take any excuse not to give you the money. Very frustrating. A popular film festival is back in downtown San Jose. It is the CineQuest Film and Creativity Festival, which kicked off this last Friday, and it runs now for the next 10 days. CineQuest attracts film lovers to learn about the latest innovations in the film world. The last weekend, the festival held a public town hall on artificial intelligence and the role that it has in the film world. So exciting happenings in the South Bay. Meanwhile, there is a hiker missing and feared dead after being swept away. This happened in the Los Angeles area. Authorities say this 59-year-old victim was hiking with friends in the Angeles National Forest over the weekend when she tried to forge a river and was swept away by strong currents. Crews have been out. They've been combing the area since this happened. They now say the search, though, is turning into a recovery effort, sadly. We mentioned this yesterday, but mentioned it again. Some Taco Bell locations in Oakland are no longer allowing dining room service because of safety concerns. Several of the restaurants have put up signs in their windows saying they are now drive-through locations only. That is it. The decision to stop dining room service comes after robberies have taken place in some of Oakland's Taco Bell locations in the last several months. A very scary situation there. I don't know if you've seen this story about the Scott Peterson case. It's something we've been talking about off and on here on the Nikki Medoro show. But now the Peterson case is returning to court with the Innocence Project. It's not the Innocence Project. It's the Los Angeles Innocence Project, which apparently is separate from the main Innocence Project. But according to the sources that are talking about the case, Scott Peterson and family members and a very skeptical private investigator are not convinced that Scott Peterson should be behind bars. So the Peterson murder case will head to court once again in Redwood City today. He is currently serving a life sentence without the possibility of parole. He is appearing in court today via live stream video feed from Mule Creek State Prison. They say that they're trying to claim, the LA Innocence Project, that he is actually innocent. And they will say they are presenting motions, exhibits, and new evidence to the San Mateo County Superior Court. At issue, apparently, is a robbery that happened across the street from where Scott and Lacey Peterson lived at the time. And so whether that ties in or whether it has anything to do, whether it was properly investigated, that is where the Los Angeles Innocence Project is going with that. So we'll see if there's any movement on that case. Lastly, I will tell you that Bad Bunny, I don't know who Bad Bunny is suing a fan for posting live concert footage online. And I tell you the story because it's something many people do when they go to a concert, right? Maybe you see all the people with their cell phones up, taking video of the concert, posting it on Facebook or Instagram or whatever afterward. He doesn't want that. So he's taking one of his fans to court in the state of Utah, suing the fan for uploading footage from his Salt Lake City concert last month without permission. Other fans also shared footage from the concert on social media, but apparently this one fan, Eric Garone's recordings were high-quality, full song performances that were shared to his YouTube channel. Bad Bunny claims to own the rights to his concerts and issued a takedown order, citing the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. But Garone filed a counterclaim, and so the rapper decided to sue him for $150,000 for each post and for damages too. As of now, all of the videos have been taken down, and they go to court. So we'll see what happens, but I think it makes you maybe take a step back and think, well, what can I post online and what can't I post online, right? What do I own and what do I not own? And maybe just because you bought a ticket to the concert doesn't necessarily mean you are owning or able to post that music. Again, this report is sponsored by you, and we rely on you to support The Nikki Medoro Show. Please find us at thenikkimedoroshow.com, where the Patreon and PayPal links are located. Of course, the Super Chat and Super Stickers are open. And I have to thank Joy Branson for the $10 Super Sticker. Thank you for being here for me. I need you guys to further the conversation and to hang out with this morning. So thank you very much. And thank you for helping support the show. Really, really appreciate it very, very much. Okay, we're back into it. Let us go now to the flight from hell. Absolute flight from hell. And the pilot is saying they lost control of instruments for just a few minutes. This is a flight from Australia to New Zealand. And this man is asleep and he wakes up and all of a sudden sees all the people on the ceiling, right? Not all the people, but many of the people on the ceiling. So he speaks to the media, and let's talk a little bit, or let's listen to a little bit about what this gentleman had to say. Let's see if I can't. Sorry, having a trouble sharing this. What this man had to say about his experience on this really, really scary flight. Let's see. Yeah, here it is. Sorry, I don't know. It's stuck. Nope, I think I'm sharing the wrong thing. I'm sorry, you guys. Hold on, I'll get this right. Bear with me for just a minute. I thought I was being all smooth, but apparently I'm not being all smooth. Nope. Nope. All right, let's see if I'm going to try it again now. Because what he has to say, the story he tells, is outrageous. And it really, I think, I don't know, calls into question sometimes, to me, the safety of airplanes that so many of us just take for granted.
Okay, physically, I can only imagine the trauma. I mean, it's a terrifying incident. Can you describe to me exactly what happened? You know, you're flying along. I think in your case, you dozed off, and then what?
Yeah, thank you. It was like a scene out of a movie when actually you're actually in the movie. I had dozed off and luckily had my seatbelt engaged, and the next thing you know, the plane, as I've kind of learned to understand, dropped something to the effect of 500 feet instantly, and then had the effect of it coming like a roller coaster, and then started to point down. And that's when I opened my eyes, and there was various individuals at the top of the plane, just stuck to the roof, and then they fell to the floor. And then I just realized I'm not in a movie. This is actually for real, and not dreaming. This is for real.
So when you're dreaming and it feels like a nosedive, there's a moment where you think maybe it is a dream, but you wake up to see someone hitting the ceiling.
Yeah, and I looked next to me, and the guy was out of his seat and on the ceiling of the plane, and then he fell and hurt himself pretty bad. And then people were screaming and crying, and yeah, it was mass chaos for a few short seconds.
And there was a moment in your head where you thought, "Oh my God, now this is it. I'm going to die"?
Yeah, there was clearly a moment in my head, and then I just kind of resigned to the fact that this could be it. You know, this might be it, and then the announcement came on: take your seats, please. Anyone, you know, we'll be sending help as quickly as possible. There's any doctors on board, and a few doctors stepped up to the plate and started to give assistance and mend some people up that were bleeding and had various kind of injuries, putting some neck braces on people. It was touch and go.
Oh, so the pilot, after this happens, comes back to check on everybody after the incident, comes over to where you are. Brian, how did he look?
I think he was in shock. I think he felt that he wanted to see what people were going through. He walked to the back, and I immediately engaged with him and said, you know, what was that? And he openly admitted, he said, I lost control of the plane. My gauges just kind of went blank on me. And that's when the plane just took a dive.
So literally, he said the gauges went blank.
Yeah, he said they malfunctioned. Mm-hmm.
And did he say that made it so he didn't have the ability then to even control it, to fly it?
He said for that brief moment he couldn't control anything, and that's when the plane just did what it did, and then he said the gauges came back and then re-engaged, and the plane just re-engaged to its normal flight pattern.
I'm muted. Oh, that was a great conversation with myself. Let me tell you that much. So let me repeat myself. So sorry, you guys. Thank you for bearing with me. So the instruments are on, then the instruments are off, then there's a nosedive, and then they come back on, and thank God they did. But I think it really calls into question whether people are checking these things, whether they're doing their pre-flight checks properly, whether the maintenance is being performed properly. Things that we didn't used to have to think about. I don't know about you, but most of my life, if I ever took a flight, I walk on a plane, I'm not worried at all. I'm having no problem. Now, there are some people who are just scared of flying. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying I never thought about who's maintaining the plane. I just assumed all of these things were being done because that's the way this works. And now we have Boeing. They're using scrap metal from the bucket so they can meet deadlines. How many planes are out there with scrap metal holding things together? That doesn't inspire confidence. How scary was that? People on the ceiling. I think 50 people were injured in that incident. One still in serious condition, most cuts and bruises. But I mean, you have to be on the ceiling of the plane looking down thinking, okay, how am I going to fall? What's the best way to fall? Where am I going to come down? Am I going to break my back falling on a seat? What's going to happen? How do I protect my head? Scary situation. Later on the Mark Thompson show, we'll have an aviation expert on to talk about a lot of incidences, including the recent news that we've talked about here on this show with the whistleblower at Boeing being found dead. So again, that aviation expert on the Mark Thompson show in the 12 o'clock hour. So that is something to flip over the show for and just hear in 10 minutes on the Mark Thompson show. Meanwhile, there's a Tahoe house. I thought this was a great story to end with today. I'll call it a house, but it's really more of an estate. It's for sale, and it includes a Tesla Cybertruck. I'm not even joking you. This place is something else. And the whole point of this estate is that it's supposed to be green, right? From the roof to the car in the garage, I guess. I don't know if I would want a Tesla Cybertruck, especially in Tahoe where you need to drive it through the snow. We saw what happened on the sandy beach. But okay. Apparently the owner is hoping that this Cybertruck, you can see it parked in the driveway here, will help spur the sale of this fancy Tahoe estate. It's offered for $12.8 million. It's still technically under construction. It's in Clear Creek, Nevada, and it's being built by Whisper Homes. They call it sustainable luxury living. It's going to have a Tesla solar roof, a Powerwall battery system, generators, battery backup, allowing the home to go off-grid whenever needed. And as an incentive, you see it down there in the driveway, the Tesla Cybertruck. Included in the purchase price they have there. It's got a pool. It's 7,142 square feet. That's big. With 5 bedrooms and 6 bathrooms, the main level including a great room, a dining room, living room, and a giant primary suite with its own porch and its own office. You never even have to leave your bedroom. You can just wander right to your office, wander out to the porch. Pretty nice. The home even has an elevator to take you up to the 2nd floor, just in case the stairs are too much for you. And there the additional bedrooms can be found. This thing will easily fit the Tesla Cybertruck because it has a 6-car garage, additional room for a gym, theater, spa. Wow. $12.8 million. They say it's not going to be done until 2025. Do you think the Cybertruck helps sell this place? No. I think anyone with $12.8 million can buy their own Cybertruck. It is in Nevada, on the Nevada side. Clear Creek, Nevada. Yeah. John says, maybe if I win the lottery. Calvin wants a regular gas truck with his mansion. That's not the point of the mansion, though. It's got the Tesla roof, the Tesla power walls. It's got everything, so you don't even need, to be connected to the grid if you didn't want to be, right? Kathleen says, of all the things I don't want, that's it. Phineas is saying, no, it should be a Rivian, not a cyber crap. Yeah. Some crypto bro will buy this, perhaps. But look at that. I guess that's the house of the future we're looking at right there. Pretty interesting. Oh, I did want to tell you about this one last story. And this is a story about Ayesha Curry, the wife of amazing Warriors basketball star Steph Curry. And we have seen Ayesha Curry shine on her own in her cooking shows and opening her restaurants, right? But she's now branching out into Hollywood. And she will be starring in a movie with Lindsay Lohan. It's a rom-com. And it's a first for her. Her character, I don't think it's a lead character, but she has a pretty substantial role in this this rom-com. There she is. There she is with Lindsay Lohan. It's a Netflix film, and it should be out within, I think, a week. It's called Irish Wish. So Lindsay Lohan in this movie plays a woman who travels to Ireland to her best friend's wedding. Her friend is marrying a man who Lindsay Lohan's character has loved from afar quietly and wishes she was with. And here's where we have the Lindsay Lohan twist. One night, she wishes too hard and wakes up in an alternate reality where she has switched places with her friend. She always does these flipping places with someone, right? Like Freaky Friday. At first, she's overjoyed, but then it becomes a love triangle when she meets a charming wedding photographer and the man she thought she loves' faults are gradually revealed. So Curry plays this character named Heather. We don't know how big her role is, but it's kind of exciting. This is a first time for her. And I understand I thought she was pregnant with her fourth baby. This probably was filmed before much of her pregnancy could show. I guess she appeared, Ayesha Curry, in some minor TV and film roles. In 2008, she was on that sitcom 10 Items or Less. And then she was in a rom-com called Love for Sale. And she, in 2009, appeared on Hannah Montana. So I guess it's not, this is not her first time being on screen as I thought it was. So it's exciting for her, though. And I'll totally watch that movie. You know, I love a good rom-com, right? All right, The Mark Thompson Show is coming up next here on YouTube and podcast, however you listen to us. Thank you for being here on the Nikki Medoro Show. Can't thank you enough. And thank you to Joy for jumping in with a $10 super sticker, and to everyone who contributes to the show on Patreon and PayPal. We really appreciate that very much. Again, theNikkiMedoroShow.com. A free way to help us is to click the thumbs up button here on the Nikki Medoro Show. I will be back tomorrow, and then Nikki comes back on Thursday and Friday, so we will be together and things will be back to normal. For now, have a great rest of your day, and I will see you on The Mark Thompson Show next and the After Party Live. And we will end it, as we often do, with Jacob. Thanks, everybody.
Nikki, you're all so awesome. You're proud, like a beautiful blossom. You're also the best. I really can't rest. You're all so awesome.
Wow. Okay.